What's up guys, Jesse here. So when Apple first unveiled the Magic Keyboard for iPad Pro, it generated a ton of hype because it was the first iPad keyboard from Apple that had support for trackpads. And not only that, it had this crazy looking floating design, and they also got rid of the butterfly switches that everybody hated so much in favor of the tried and true scissor switch. But after a year of being out in the market and people using it, how does it hold up? And TLDR, if you guys don't want to watch the rest of the video, the one takeaway from this is I really like it way more than the old Smart Folio case, and I do recommend it, but it's not perfect. But if you guys want to know why I feel that way, then stick around for the rest of the video. Now, I feel like for most people, this isn't going to be that important, but for me, when I look at like a laptop or a keyboard case like this, the typing experience is such an important aspect to me, because that is the main way that you interact with a device. That's why people spend hundreds of dollars on mechanical keyboards, and that's why I spent $350 on this keyboard case. And I'm glad to say that the typing experience on the Magic Keyboard is really good, like surprisingly good. While it'll never be as good as a proper mechanical keyboard, it really impressed me. Like, I have a 16-inch MacBook Pro, which is also when they switched back to the scissor switch design. I actually like the typing experience on the Magic Keyboard more than the MacBook. It's kind of hard to describe, but the keystrokes on the Magic Keyboard just feel a little bit more tactile and snappy, while the MacBook keyboard feels just a little bit mushier and less engaging. Also, this might be kind of a weird thing to mention, but I like the finish on the keys of the Magic Keyboard a little bit better than that of the MacBook. It's kind of a smoother, glossier finish, which usually I don't like, but this actually hides oil stains way better than the MacBook. Like, even though my MacBook is newer, you can already kind of see on the spacebar where the matte finish is starting to wear away. While on the Magic Keyboard, it looks more or less the same as it did when I first got it, at least on the keys. But if you're in the market for the Magic Keyboard, you might be wondering how the typing experience compares to the older Smart Folio case. And honestly, the difference is like night and day, and it's almost not even fair to compare the two. And this is coming from someone who actually didn't mind the butterfly switches to begin with. You just get way more travel distance, and it's just a lot more satisfying and easier to type for long periods of time. And I'll just include a little sound test here so you guys can hopefully get a better idea of how all three of these keyboards feel through the sound, I guess. And I would really appreciate it if you guys please go easy on me in the comments for my horrible typing form. Anyways, here is the sound test. Alright, that was the sound test, and let me know what you guys think. Personally, out of all three of these keyboards, I actually like the Magic Keyboard the best, like I just said. Also, if you're trying to decide between the Magic Keyboard and the Smart Folio case, one of the biggest features that they added with this one is backlighting, which I just feel like was a huge omission on the last version. So if you guys do a lot of typing late at night when there's not a lot of light around, then that's definitely something to consider. The one complaint I have though is because the keys aren't protected by a thin layer of fabric like the Smart Folio case was, stuff can actually get under the keys. Like on mine, some dust or a crumb or something like that got stuck under the N key, and it has never felt the same since. But of course, if you're careful, that's definitely something that can be avoided. But yeah, I feel like within the realm of like chiclet style keys, this gets a solid A in terms of typing experience. Anyways, under the keyboard is the other kind of headlining feature of the Magic Keyboard, the trackpad. So as far as like tracking accuracy, speed, and feel, I have no complaints with this trackpad. Apple is known for making pretty much the best trackpads in all of their laptops, and a lot of that carries over to these ones. You get to use all of their multi-finger gestures like swiping 3 fingers to go home, which is great, super convenient. The trackpad definitely could be bigger though. I found that when I was doing a lot of vertical swiping, for example, like scrolling through an article, I was always running out of pad and it just kind of sucked. It does look like they tried to maximize the surface area of the trackpad, but I just wish that they could have found some sort of creative way to make it a little bit bigger. Just having a trackpad though makes a huge difference, and this is gonna sound really lazy, but just not having to lift your arm to interact with the device anytime you're doing anything other than typing makes it much less fatiguing to use this over a longer period of time. Apple has also done a really good job of integrating the trackpad support into iPad OS, like the multi-finger gesturing or just being able to interact with almost everything, although there are times where you just really can't avoid having to touch the screen. Overall though, I feel like the trackpad was really well done, and honestly most of the stuff that I'm complaining about is really just nitpicking. Anyways, also new with the Magic Keyboard is this sort of floating hinge design, which Apple makes a pretty big deal about, and I don't know, I guess it kind of looks like it's floating, sort of. In all honesty though, I do think it looks really cool and futuristic. Although from the position you would actually use it, you can hardly tell it's even any kind of special hinge. And functionality wise, I also feel like it's really good with some caveats. So the bad parts about it are, one, that it's still pretty wobbly, and if you have to touch the screen a lot while it's on the case, it gets pretty annoying. And I find that I always have to use my free hand to kind of hold it steady while I'm interacting with it. I will note though that the Smart Folio case also wobbled a lot, so none of this is new. Second, and I think probably a bigger deal, is that you can now no longer flip the keyboard all the way behind the device so that it's flat. So the whole floating design is basically made up of two hinges, and the first one will open up to about 60 degrees, while the second one will give you another 30. I really would have liked to see a bigger range of motion on this, but I guess one of the consolations is that it's much easier now to just take it off and then plop it back on when you're done. One of the good things about the new hinge though is that you now get much finer control over the viewing angles of the screen. There's no notches or anything now, so you pretty much get infinite options. And I feel like the best part about this is that you can now also get negative angles, which comes in super handy for if you're watching this in bed while you're laying down. There's also a USB-C pass-through on the left side which will let you transfer power but not data, so you can't connect like a hard drive or anything like that, which would be really nice, but I just find it incredibly useful to have a charge port on either side of the iPad. And it also charges at roughly the same speed as the main port, so that's also good. Anyways, last few things before we wrap this up. The weight. It's a little bit higher than I would like. It comes in at about 700 grams, which is actually heavier than the iPad itself. And when you use the case with the iPad, you can really feel the extra weight. And it turns the iPad from something that just feels like super light and honestly just lighter than it should be, to something that's really dense and just kind of heavy. So if weight is a big concern of yours, that's definitely something to think about. Next is durability, which is I guess probably the biggest piece of value I can offer in a 1-year review. So I got this pretty much as soon as it came out, and I've been using it regularly with a mixture of home and outside use, and you can really tell. Now functionality wise, it's still at 100% except for that one little thing with the N key that I mentioned, but the material that they use for the outside just shows a lot of wear. At the corners near the hinge, it's kind of chipping at both sides, and all over the surface of the outside, as well as where I rest my palms when I'm typing, you can just see the kind of wear and tear that comes from placing this on various tabletops and just the finish coming off where I usually hold it. And while you might just write this off as me being not careful with my stuff, I think my usage is pretty typical of someone who actually, uses it. So just something to consider if you want this to still look new after a year. But like I said, this is all cosmetic and it still functions 100%. So it's not really that big of a deal, but it's just kind of a shame that it's showing so much wear after such a short time, especially considering the price. But at the end of the day, after a year of use, do I still think this is worth taking a look at? And I guess I spoiled it at the beginning of the video, but like I said, I think it's a great product with a few caveats, but overall, I do recommend it. The great typing experience along with the backlit keys, the trackpad, the extra port, and just a really cool design make it worth considering in my opinion. However, if you're someone who takes a lot of handwritten notes or an artist who does a lot of drawing, I feel like you may want to look into a case that can fold flat, because I just find it really inconvenient to have to take this off the case anytime you want to do those things. But that's just my opinion, and at the end of the day, it's your money and you can do what you want with it. Anyways, that's all for this one. Remember to smash that like button, and if you enjoy content like this, think about subscribing and hitting the bell so you don't miss anything. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace!